In the 6th year after my divorce, I ran into Joel at a cake shop. When the clerk saw him, her face lit up with a familiar smile. "Professor, here to buy strawberry cake for your wife again? Same as always, right? I'll pack it for you." Joel nodded. He noticed the 2 mango cakes in my hands and spoke to the clerk before I could react. "Add hers to my bill." I politely declined and pulled out my phone to pay, but he tapped his card first. "This cake is $598 per slice. You used to save for a long time just to buy one. I'm a university professor. Financially, I'm a bit better off than you. Don't be polite." I still refused to accept it. His eyes drifted over my clothes, and he sighed. "Olivia, it's been so many years. Are you still holding a grudge?" I smiled lightly. "You're overthinking." I touched the wedding ring on my finger. I already had a new husband and a child. Why would I have time to hold grudges against another man? Chapter 1. Joel moved too fast and paid the bill before I could stop him. I didn't want to accept it and insisted on paying for myself. The clerk gave me an apologetic smile. "Miss, I'm sorry, but the gentleman already paid. If you'd like, you can transfer the money to him." I turned around and spoke politely. "Show me your payment code. I'll pay you back." Joel let out a helpless sigh and handed me the bagged cakes. "Olivia, just take them. In 3 days it'll be your birthday. Consider these 2 cakes my gift." His voice was earnest. I didn't respond. I simply opened my payment screen. "Scan me." I don't like owing anyone, especially not over 2 pieces of cake. It was just afternoon tea for me and my daughter. Seeing my stubbornness, Joel stayed silent for a long time before finally taking out his phone. "You're still the same as before." I said nothing. Head lowered. "Transferring the money." Joel stopped me. "Olivia, you really don't need to be so serious." His eyes flicked over my worn-out coat, and he hesitated. "I don't need that 1,000 plus. Why don't you use it to buy a couple of proper outfits?" I froze. Then I understood and laughed. Earlier, when I was volunteering, I gave my coat to a girl who was dealing with her period and needed something to cover up with. Since autumn had begun and the weather was cold, I borrowed a cleaner's spare coat on my way back. Joel probably thought my life had fallen apart. I didn't bother explaining. I simply said thank you, and turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm from behind. "Let me give you a ride." I stiffened and shook off his hand. "No need. Your wife might misunderstand." Joel's hand, reaching out again, stopped in midair. He knew fully well that young wife 8 years his junior was notoriously clingy and jealous. "Olivia." He grabbed my wrist again. "Should we exchange contact information?" I lowered my head and stayed silent. Our divorce 6 years ago had been ugly, messy enough that we deleted and blocked each other everywhere and swore never to interact again in this lifetime. I shook my head. "Forget it, Olivia. You don't need to stay angry at me. So many years have passed. I just want you to live better." He said he wanted to add my contact, to transfer some money to me, as compensation for back then. I almost laughed. Back then, I fought like hell, lost all dignity, yet didn't get a single cent of compensation. Now that I no longer needed him, he suddenly appeared, saying he wanted to compensate me. "Darling, I called you earlier. Why didn't you answer? Who are you talking to?" While I was dazed, a young woman in a pink coat came bouncing over and hooked her arm through Joel's. When she saw me, her smile froze for a second, then widened again. "Olivia, it's you. It's been so many years. Why don't we have a meal together?" Before I could react, Lisa grabbed my arm with false enthusiasm, chattering loudly. "Olivia, we've been looking for you for 6 years. You vanished completely. Even your old colleagues thought you went abroad. Where did you go all these years?" Chapter 2. I quietly looked at the girl in front of me. She had changed so much I could barely recognize her. Back then, she had frizzy hair, simple clothes, and eyes like a frightened little deer. A poor scholarship student. After 6 years of Joel's meticulous care, she had grown into a dazzling red rose. I gave a polite, distant smile. "I did go abroad." Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? But Olivia, back then I went looking for you several times, and they all said you returned to your hometown after the divorce." Before she could finish running her mouth, Joel cut her off. Enough. Don't bring up the past. He affectionately ruffled her hair. The little cake I bought for you is going to melt soon. Eat it. With her mouth full of cake, Lisa mumbled and still tried to block my way. Olivia, we finally ran into you after so many years. Let us treat you to a meal, okay? About everything that happened back then, I know you probably hate us. But you helped me. Your support paid for all 4 years of my college tuition. Without you, I wouldn't be who I am today. Her face was full of sincerity, as if refusing her would make me the unreasonable one. I glanced at my watch. It was still early. Fine, I only have an hour and a half. They chose the restaurant. On the way there, the girl chattered nonstop and even fed Joel cake by hand. Because I was present, Joel's movements were stiff as he grabbed her restless hand. Behave. Olivia is watching. Lisa stuck out her tongue playfully. Sorry, Olivia. We've been married for years now. We're used to acting like this. Sometimes we can't even help kissing while walking down the street. Don't mind us. I watched the flicker of provocation and self-satisfaction in her eyes. I merely smiled. No worries. After all, back when you were in college, you already couldn't help doing things with him in my house. I'm used to it. The air froze instantly. Lisa and Joel's expressions both darkened slightly. I, however, remained calm and kept walking ahead. Before reaching the restaurant, we passed a fireworks shop. Lisa's excitement ignited instantly. She insisted on dragging Joel inside. Baby, didn't you say you'd set off fireworks across the whole city for my birthday in 3 days? I want to choose a style first. Olivia, you don't mind, right? I smiled. I don't mind. Joel gave me a glance full of complicated meaning before turning to select fireworks. This one, Tears of the Sea. I stopped. The memories I had almost forgotten suddenly came rushing back. Those distant years. Joel once loved me deeply. We dated for 4 years and were married for 6. Everyone said he was well known for spoiling his wife. As a university professor, he refused to attend social gatherings, rejected any student who tried to get his number, and remained utterly loyal. Among the academic books he published, there was one odd volume titled Love Confession, written especially for me. The entire faculty at Yunhai University praised our legendary love story. Every year on my birthday, he would fill the whole city with fireworks, until one day, while rearranging the bookshelf, I accidentally found a photo hidden inside one of his books. The girl was young, wearing a miniskirt, sitting across his lap, smiling into the camera. I recognized her instantly. She was the one who always called me sister sweetly, the scholarship student I personally supported for 3 years. Lisa. She was also a student in Joel's class. Back then, on a heavy rainy day, she had been cornered by a group of thugs in a dead-end alley. I saved her. I brought her home, let her shower and change. She was terrified when she saw Joel. I smiled and reassured her. Don't worry, your professor doesn't bite. Little by little, her courage grew. She eventually even started tiptoeing into the study room to ask Joel academic questions. Watching them get along so well, I couldn't help feeling a little gratified. Until later, on Joel's computer, I found their intimate photos. After discovering them, I rushed into the study hysterically, and sure enough, the teacher and his student, who were supposedly studying, were intertwined on the desk, completely absorbed in each other. When I barged in, both of them panicked and grabbed their clothes to cover themselves. I lost all dignity, all manners. Like a madwoman, I screamed at the top of my lungs, demanding to know why Joel cheated right under my nose. But Joel only rushed to shield the woman beside him, covering her completely. Then he looked up at me, his eyes cold and furious. Get out! Olivia, you have no shame. We're not done. As expected, men can be ruthlessly heartless. When they love you, they give you their life. But once they don't, they can peel the skin right off your bones. Chapter 3. I smashed everything I could lay my hands on in every room. I refused to believe it. One was the man I had loved for nearly 10 years. The other was the poor student I sponsored for 3 years, whom I treated like my own little sister. Yet the two of them actually dared, right under my nose, while I was cooking, to openly entangle themselves in the study. under the guise of academic discussions. They committed the most shameless acts. My whole body trembled violently. My eyes bloodshot. Completely unable to accept any of it, Joel looked at me with disgust, stubbornly shielding Lisa behind him. Olivia, you're acting like a lunatic. You'd better calm down. If you dare hurt her even a little, I won't let you go. Lisa hid behind him, the red marks on her neck still visible, crying in short, trembling gasps. Olivia, I'm sorry. I'm the one who wronged you. I know this is immoral, but I still fell in love with the professor. Please. I don't want a title, just let me be with the professor, okay? I was stunned. But do you even understand that you're being the other woman in someone else's marriage? I don't care. Lisa suddenly screamed back, as if fighting desperately for her freedom. What we have is a physiological attraction. Olivia, even without you rescuing me, I already liked the professor at school, and he liked me too. Looking at her stubborn, fearless expression, I suddenly remembered the rainy night I brought her home. Because I saved her. Those gangsters targeted me for a long time. 4 months. I was too scared to walk that road again. Not until I finally went to the police. I never once regretted saving Lisa. But that night, I hated myself for being so kind, for giving another woman the opportunity to get close to my husband. 10 years. Those were my 10 years. I refused to accept the truth, letting myself fall apart, screaming like a madwoman, demanding to know when it all started. Looking back now, I was truly foolish. The betrayal had already happened, even if I asked. What difference did it make? But at that time, all I felt was burning rage, a gut filled with betrayal. Olivia, stop making a scene. Lisa needs to focus on her studies. She won't take anything from you. She won't fight you for any title. You're still my wife. After putting his clothes back on, Joel spoke righteously, as if he were comforting me. You don't need to sponsor Lisa anymore. I'll handle her expenses. Lisa never came to the house again, but their dating locations multiplied. Cafes, restaurants, the library, even hotels. I started observing them like a madwoman. Joel never worked on Saturdays, but after Lisa became close to him, he went to the university every Saturday. Like a stalker, I took a taxi to follow him, and at the foot of the teaching building, I saw him and Lisa kissing passionately. Overcome with desire, they slipped into the car I bought with my own hands as Joel's birthday present. Soon, it began to rock rhythmically. I rushed over and smashed the car. They were humiliated on the spot, but Joel was determined to protect her, treating me like a mentally unstable person, and having security throw me out. Chapter 4. For a long period afterward, I made countless disgraceful scenes. I hung banners and caused chaos at the university where Joel worked. Even went to Lisa's classroom. I wanted the whole world to know she was the mistress, the poor student I had sponsored, the girl I once treated like my own sister. The better I had treated her, the more I now hated her. There were so many men in the world. Why, out of everyone, did she have to set her sights on my husband? I wanted to shout to everyone that she was an ungrateful snake. Joel was also the most despicable liar on earth. Our love had long been torn beyond recognition. He was afraid of the scandal, afraid I would ruin Lisa's reputation and academic life. So he hired bodyguards to keep me under soft confinement. I even harmed myself multiple times. That feeling, being abandoned by the whole world, was like swallowing poison with no way to spit it out. Desperately needing an outlet. In the past, whenever I got even a small injury, Joel would frown with distress. But later, he grew more impatient with every incident. When he saw the long cuts on my arms, he only yelled at me with disgust. You've had enough. If you want to die, do it somewhere far away. Stop using these pathetic tricks. Olivia, I never intended to divorce you. As long as you pretended not to see anything like before, I could let you be my wife for life. But now you're no longer qualified. Later on, I took sleeping pills and was sent to the hospital. But I didn't die. When I woke up, I finally thought it through. I signed the divorce papers. In the blink of an eye. 6 years had passed. My thoughts returned to the present. Lisa had already chosen her fireworks. I want this one, Tears of the Sea. Honey, I want the same fireworks you used to set off for Olivia years ago. The ones that explode in the sky and show my name. I want you to write, Lisa. I love you. Joel smiled dotingly and agreed to everything. Soon, they chose a restaurant near Yunhai University. Olivia. This place is delicious. Joel and I come here often. You probably haven't eaten something like this in a long time, right? Lisa excitedly recommended dishes from the menu. I kept a faint smile. I'm tired of Western food. I had too much of it abroad. Just order whatever you want. After graduating, Lisa never found a job, so Joel used his connections to help her stay at the university. Everyone praised them as a model couple. I lowered my head and smiled. Sure enough, what others say is merely noise. Never take it seriously. Lisa's gaze swept over my outfit. Her expression complicated. Olivia, what job do you do now? I paused for a second and answered honestly. I don't have a job right now. Lisa's expression said I knew it. She sighed dramatically. We really wronged you back then. If you haven't found a job, my husband and I can help. I heard the university is hiring cleaners. I think you'd be perfect for it. Joel frowned. Lisa! What? Did I say something wrong? Lisa blinked innocently. I mean, well, Olivia clearly hasn't been doing well these years. I just want to help. Since I didn't deny it. Joel didn't say more. He merely turned to me. She talks without thinking. Don't mind her. I smiled faintly. Thanks. But my business is none of your concern. Just then, my husband Marco called me. Olivia. I just picked up our daughter from school. Where are you? You said you wanted hot pot, right? I'll bring Sophia to meet you. I replied softly. Okay. I'm at the Western restaurant across from Yunhai University. After I hung up, the two of them stared at me suspiciously. Olivia, didn't you say you have no relatives in the capital? Who just called you? I smiled. My husband. They froze instantly. Lisa even jumped up in shock. Olivia, you're married? Joel's face turned pale. Olivia, you don't have to put on an act. If you're single, just say so. Why lie? Chapter 5. I froze for a moment, wanting to explain. But the words instantly died in my throat. Why should I explain anything to him? A man who was less than a stranger to me. Who had been erased from my life 6 years ago. I didn't lie. I've finished eating. Enjoy your meal. I stood up to leave, but he grabbed me. Olivia, make it clear before you go. I already asked my friends in the circle to investigate. It's impossible that you're married. I almost laughed, turning back to him. And what makes you so certain? Joel's expression turned ugly. He couldn't answer. But his eyes and his face had already betrayed his thoughts. Joel always carried a sense of superiority. As if he were above everyone. He had seen how I once clung to the marriage. How I destroyed myself trying to stop the divorce. He was convinced that even if I divorced, I would regret it. That I would wait for him to come back to me. During all these years I've been married to Marco. He blocked every piece of information about me. Even the private investigators hired at high prices couldn't find a single trace. So the rumors appeared. Some said I went abroad. Others said I returned to the countryside. All of it was fake. Nobody knew how happy I was with my husband. My child. With my family. Joel still refused to believe it. His face pale. He clung to the question like a madman. So are you actually married? Or are you just dating that man? Olivia, even if you want to enter marriage again, you have to keep your eyes open. What has he given you? Look at the state of the clothes you're wearing. Don't make yourself so cheap. You deserve better. Joel looked desperate, but I was completely baffled. What does who I marry have to do with you? Besides, no matter how bad someone might be, they could never be worse than you, right? It was just because of the cleaning lady's jacket I borrowed that he assumed my life had fallen apart. I told you, I'm doing very well. I don't need your concern. I tried to pull my wrist away again. It didn't work. Joel held on tight, his knuckles turning white from force. Lisa watched for a moment, then suddenly forced a smile. Honey, look at you. You're scaring Olivia. Olivia said she's married. So it must be true. Her words were full of thorns. Her eyes drifted to the wedding ring on my finger, as if checking whether it was real. But Olivia, that diamond is huge. If it's real, it must be worth at least hundreds of millions. My husband is right. There are all kinds of men outside. Be careful not to get fooled. She spoke while proudly displaying her own ring. Look, Joel is a university professor, and even he could only afford a 12-carat diamond ring for me. But yours. The implication was obvious. She was suggesting my wedding ring was fake, since she lacked the vision to recognize anything. I couldn't be bothered to argue. Thanks for the reminder. Just as I was about to yank my wrist free from Joel, steady footsteps came from the restaurant entrance. Olivia. Chapter 6. Marco wore a dark gray suit, tall and composed. He held the hand of a little girl with pigtails. My daughter, Sophia. When he saw Joel grabbing my hand, his brows tightened. He stepped forward quickly and calmly pulled me behind him. Sir, you were pulling on my wife just now. Is there a problem? His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an unmistakable pressure. Joel's face instantly turned ugly, especially when he saw Marco. His face drained completely of color. Who in the capital didn't know Marco? Back then, he returned from Wall Street, took over the family's empire, and within a few short years, became one of the dominant forces in the entertainment industry. A university professor like Joel didn't even qualify to be compared. Marco? Joel's hand stiffened in midair. Even his tone weakened. I'm Olivia's ex-husband. Ex-husband? Marco raised a brow, looked down at me, and his gaze softened instantly. Olivia, why didn't you ever mention it? I really thought your ex-husband was dead. Joel's face turned iron blue, his eyes wide with disbelief. I simply gave a light, distant smile. He's not important enough to mention. Sophia peeked out from behind Marco, her big eyes blinking at me. Mommy! I crouched down and hugged her. She kissed me on the cheek and said in her soft little voice, Daddy said Mommy was talking to a bad guy. Sophia will protect Mommy. Lisa's face went green, then white. She forced a smile and tried to smooth things over. So Olivia's husband is Mr. Marco. That's really impressive. I thought Olivia wasn't doing well these years. But she's married so well. She beamed awkwardly, trying to extend her hand toward Marco, but he ignored her completely. Marco put his arm around my shoulders. We still have things to do. We'll be leaving. As we walked past Joel, he suddenly called out, Mr. Marco. Olivia. My wife's name isn't something you get to say. Marco gave him a cold glance. And stay away from my wife. Joel opened his mouth, but no words came out. On our way out, I didn't forget to take the 2 mango cakes I bought. I added, casually, oh, by the way, this kind of cake that costs $598 each. My daughter and I eat one every day, not because we can't afford it. Watching our family of 3 leave together. Joel stood there pale for a long time. After hot pot, I stood by the roadside, while Marco went to get a little gift for our daughter. Then I heard a loud argument, coming from the hot pot restaurant behind us. A woman shouted, Why are you giving me that attitude? Don't think I didn't notice. The moment you saw Olivia, your eyes didn't move. You keep saying you've forgotten her, but can you swear you really have? Every time you sleep talk in the middle of the night, the name you call out is hers, Olivia. And last time on my birthday, the fireworks. Admit it! You misspelled the fireworks, because you were spacing out. And it became Olivia. I love you. You said it was a reflex? Liar! Joel, you have never gotten over Olivia. So what am I, then? Where do you put me? The man finally snapped and roared. Shut up! Olivia and I were together for 10 years. She was supposed to be the wife I grew old with. And don't forget, you were the poor student she sponsored. If you hadn't seduced me, climbed into my bed, would I have divorced her just to take responsibility for you? You saw it yourself just now. Olivia is married to another man. There's no chance for us anymore. So what are you making a fuss about? I rubbed my ears. This kind of argument was honestly boring to overhear. So this was the model couple everyone at Yonghai University praised for years. Loving in public, fighting like enemies in private, no matter how much they fought to the heavens. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. Chapter 7. When we returned home, Sophia wrapped her arms around my neck, acting cute. Mommy, who were those two people from earlier? That uncle looked at you so fiercely. I tapped her little nose. They were people I used to know. We won't see them again. Sophia let out a sigh of relief, finally reassured. She hopped off, rummaged through her little backpack, and proudly pulled out a drawing as if it were treasure. Mommy, look! This is the family portrait I drew. This is me. This is Daddy. And this is Mommy. I looked at the childish yet heartwarming drawing of our family, and smiled as I praised her for doing such a good job. After coaxing her to sleep, Marco wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting lightly on the top of my head. Olivia, did they bully you? The moment Marco mentioned it, there was a hint of gritted teeth hatred beneath his voice, especially that Joel. No, I smiled and shook my head. I just found it ridiculous. He really thought I've lived miserably these past 6 years. Waiting for him to laugh at me. He did investigate you. Marco chuckled softly. A while ago, a private investigator tried to track your whereabouts. I handled it. Didn't expect it was him who sent the man. I froze for a moment. You knew already? He pinched my cheek gently. How could I not care about my wife? In truth, I knew Marco had long investigated everything about my past. After my divorce, when I left with nothing, and spent half a month in the hospital, he happened to encounter me while on a business trip, and brought me home. He knew how much suffering I'd endured. So for the past 6 years, he had spoiled me like a child. Right, Marco suddenly said. Next week Yonghai University is holding a donation ceremony. They want me to attend the ribbon cutting. I raised a brow in surprise. You never attend these kinds of events. There used to be no need. Marco smiled. But things are different now. Some people need to understand. My wife, Olivia, is not someone anyone can bully. Chapter 8. On the day of the donation ceremony, Marco deliberately brought me along. I wore the custom-made gown he had ordered for me. When I walked into the venue on his arm, every pair of eyes in the room turned toward me. Joel, as the representative of the university, stood on the stage. The moment he saw me, his face went utterly pale, and the speech in his hand almost slipped to the ground. Lisa stood beside him, wearing a cheap-looking dress. Compared to the haute couture gown on me, she looked completely out of place, and her expression was terribly unpleasant. Halfway through the ceremony, the host invited Marco on stage to speak. He took the microphone, swept his gaze across the hall, and finally fixed his eyes on Joel. I came today not only to donate, Marco said, but also to announce something. He lifted my hand and raised it for everyone to see. This is my wife, Olivia. Some of you may know her. 6 years ago, she suffered a great deal here. She was even labeled as a lunatic and mentally unstable. The audience erupted. Whispers spread like wildfire. Olivia? Why does that name sound familiar? Isn't she Professor Joel's ex-wife from 6 years ago? Right. I remember she caused a huge scene back then, saying she was trying to catch someone cheating. But later the matter was suppressed. Some people said she was a mentally ill woman who mistakenly barged into campus. My God, who would have thought she's Marco's wife now? Marco swept the crowd with an authoritative gaze. Then his voice echoed again, clear, steady, powerful. The student my wife once supported ended up becoming the third party who destroyed her marriage. The man she loved for 10 years discarded her like trash. I'm standing here today to tell certain people this. No one gets to bully a woman of Marco's. As for the past injustice, we'll settle it, slowly. Joel's face was as white as a sheet, his entire body trembling. Darling, she's here for revenge, Lisa stammered. Barely able to stand, her knees buckled, and a nearby teacher rushed to hold her up. I watched their disheveled, disastrous states. There wasn't a shred of satisfaction or triumph in me, only calm, because I had long let go. Whether they were once proud and arrogant, or now being slapped in the face by reality. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. Chapter 9. After the ceremony ended, Joel rushed toward me like a madman to block my path. Olivia, listen to me. I must have been out of my mind back then. I regret it. I really regret it. I was slightly stunned. Joel had always cared deeply about his image and behavior. He would never raise his voice in public. Never do anything that might damage his dignity. Yet now, he was clutching that book he once wrote for me, Love Confession. Saying he regretted everything completely, Marco stepped in front of me, shielding me, and said coldly, "Professor, mind your manners. I still have things to say to her." Joel's eyes were red as he stared at me desperately. "Olivia, can we start over? I'll divorce Lisa. I'll give her everything. I just want you." I cut him off with a quiet smile. "Do you think that's possible? When you locked me up like a lunatic. When you watched me hurt myself and felt nothing. When you told me to go die somewhere else. Why didn't you think about this day? What gives you the right to divorce me because you wanted to take responsibility for her? Marry someone else. And now expect me to divorce my husband because you suddenly changed your mind?" My voice remained calm. "I'm doing very well now. I have a husband who loves me. A daughter I adore. My life has moved on. You and Lisa are just trash I threw away. There's no need to pick it up again." Joel froze. Then tears suddenly spilled from his eyes. "I know I was wrong. Olivia, please give me another chance." Marco let out a mocking laugh. "My wife already gave you a chance. In fact, she gave you countless chances, and you personally destroyed all of them 6 years ago." He gestured toward security. "Escort this professor out. Don't let him be an eyesore here." As Joel was dragged away, Lisa suddenly rushed toward me, pointing and shouting, "Olivia, you bitch! You did this on purpose. Today was your trap. You wanted to humiliate us, didn't you? You just want to ruin us. You disappeared for 6 years. But the truth is, you never forgot revenge. You planned this for 6 whole years just to destroy us." Now, she was the one being labeled the lunatic. Marco's expression turned icy. A bodyguard immediately stepped forward, covered her mouth, and dragged her away. "People like her aren't worth your time." Marco took my hand. "Let's go home." I only turned back to glance at them lightly. What goes around comes around. That much is true. Chapter 10. After that, Joel and Lisa's life fell completely apart. Rumors began spreading throughout the school about how they once destroyed someone else's marriage. No one chose Joel's classes anymore. Every course he taught was given terrible reviews. Some righteous college students even shouted openly during his lectures, "We don't want a professor with a messed up private life and rotten morals. Get out of our classroom." Lisa suffered even worse, constantly pointed at and whispered about by colleagues. She was fired not long after. I heard they fought every day. Joel yelled that Lisa was a disaster who ruined his life. Lisa screamed back that he was heartless, that if she hadn't taken the initiative, he would never have had the guts to divorce me in the first place. They fought from dawn till dusk. The house filled with smashed objects everywhere, just like Joel and I back then. Joel came looking for me several times. He tried blocking me at the familiar cake shop, but never managed to catch me, except for that one time I went myself. Usually the nanny did the errands for our desserts. Later, I don't know how he found out where I volunteered. He finally managed to corner me. "Olivia, back then, in my eyes, you were the only wife I ever recognized. But things got out of control. Lisa was young. I couldn't just ignore her responsibility. Olivia, I've been searching for you for 6 years." Hearing his hypocritical words, I only felt amused. What did you want to find me for? To bully me even harder? To humiliate me again? To drive me out of the city once more so you could feel satisfied? Joel's face turned pale. No, that's not what I meant at all. Olivia, I can't sleep. Every night I think of you. I think about our 10 years together. 10 years. Olivia! A cold smile lifted my lips. Back when he cheated, I fought. I cried. I hurt myself. I broke down again and again. I also shouted at him. That was 10 years. 10 years. And how did Joel respond? If you're done making a scene, sign the divorce papers. I don't have time for you. Now he regrets it? Too late. I pushed him away with the same coldness. Move aside. My husband is picking me up in front. If you upset him, forget losing your job at Yunhai University. You might never be able to stay in this city again. Joel's face went dead white and he stepped aside. But he didn't stop. Instead, he began following me every few days. Once, he got drunk and ran to the bottom of our building, shouting my name into the night, crying that he missed me. Marco was so furious that his face turned dark. Without a word, he had security drag him to the police station and file a harassment report. Later, I heard Joel and Lisa had a huge fight, beating each other until they bled. They finally divorced. Lisa took more than half of Joel's assets, then immediately ran off with a rich heir. Joel was left alone, suspended from his job, drinking himself senseless every day, wandering the streets like a lunatic. Sometimes Sophia would ask, "Daddy, why did that crazy uncle disappear?" Marco held her and said with a smile, "Because he did something wrong, so he has to reflect on it." Leaning into Marco's arms, watching the sunlight through the window, I felt warmth fill my heart. The scars of the past might still exist, but they no longer hurt. Those who betrayed me eventually received the punishment they deserved. And I, after the storm, finally found my rainbow. I looked outside the window and finished the last sip of milk. Marco put on his fuzzy pajamas and slipped into my arms. "Wife, aren't you going to sleep?" I laughed helplessly and hugged this big clingy dog of a man. "You're still the domineering CEO outside. Who would have thought you turn into a wife-spoiling puppy at home?" Marco rubbed his head against me with full dependence. "I'll hug my wife and cling to my wife as much as I want. Who's going to stop me?" The night, filled with laughter and warmth, didn't feel lonely anymore.